Hello and welcome to the Final Frontiersman. I am your host Bill. This is our channel where we talk about all things Star Trek with a heavy focus on Star Trek Adventures role-playing games by Modiphius. This is going to be one of those episodes as I am talking a little bit late compared to most other sources for the game, but I'm going to be talking about probably their biggest release of 2022. So this is going to be a review. As usual, if you haven't seen our reviews before, we have an alert system, which I'll explain briefly. Yellow alert is something that I think may be of interest that you should take note of. It's just a little focus point on something, whatever it may be, to bring your attention to it. The red alert is for the things that are really good, really exciting, things that I liked a lot. And very, very rarely used. I think currently only once we've used it before is the black alert. Black alert is for something that is major, massive, completely changes things up from whatever the norm is for whatever we're reviewing at that time. In this case, a role-playing game. I believe I've only used it once before. This may be the second time. So, anyhow, as usual for our style, I will throw myself into the little corner box down there where I will look at my notes very unprofessionally because I am not a YouTuber, I am not a reviewer, I am not a personality. I have no personality, but I will hide down there, put something pretty or beautiful up in whichever area this main giant screen is. That you could look at, something related to what I'm talking to, hopefully, and we'll find out in post-production. I'm usually not very brief. I tried to be, I failed entirely. So I'm assuming this is going to be a long video as usual. You, dear viewer, all three of you, you already know how long this is before I do because you saw it in the timestamp before you jumped in here. So you probably know what you're getting into, or you're going to possibly get into. But anyhow, let me just say, first of all, just cut to the chase before I go into details about this. I finally got my it's vanishing. I finally got my physical copy. I had the PDF for a few months now. I skimmed it a little. I started reading it, got about a third of the way through, but I really just can't read a book cover to cover unless I have the physical. So I finally have the physical. This is the last physical book I was waiting for, at least the ones I want to buy. And I finally have it, blew through the book, and oh my god, I'm excited. Let me just say again, cutting to the chase, this, of course, highly recommended, like I do everything Modiphius. They put out amazing, amazing quality, amazing work for this line. But this, I'm going to say, I am recommending this for all Star Trek fans, all Trekkies, all Trekkers, whatever you want to call yourself. Anyone who is a Star Trek fan, whether you play Star Trek Adventures or not, I think you will get a lot from Utopia. Am I saying it? God, I was getting confused. Utopia Planitia. So let me get into the nitty gritty. So let me jump into my corner. Hey, here I am. I survived. Let me get into the details of what's great about this book and what's amazing about this book. Because honestly, it was the biggest release for Star Trek Adventures by far in 2022, and for good reason. The chatter about this book is still going across all the forums, across all the sites, social media. This really is a crowning achievement and accomplishment in the whole Star Trek Adventures franchise. And like I said, this is a book I am going to recommend right away to all Star Trek fans, and I'll explain why as we go on. But first of all, for those of you who don't know, which I think if you found this channel, you probably know about it already. Again, I'm pretty late. This is It's called the Starfleet Sourcebook. It's Utopia Planitia. I don't know why I'm holding it up. I got pictures on the big screen there. This is the source book about starships. That's why everyone knows right away. This is the book for starships in the game, Federation starships in the game Star Trek Adventures. But it's much more than that. It's a lot more than that. There's a lot of stuff going on in this book. So let me try to be brief. I will fail, but I'm going to try, and that's the important point. As long as you try, that's it. First of all, the subtitle of it is the Starfleet Sourcebook, and indeed it is. It's the Starfleet Sourcebook. It's not the Starship Sourcebook. It is, but it honestly is the Starfleet Sourcebook. And it begins, the first section, a very healthy section of the book, is on the history of Starfleet. You get a lot of great detail, condensed, but very full of information about the history of the organization Starfleet, even before it was Starfleet, when it was United Earth back in the Enterprise days, the NX era. But aside from just being history or teaching you the history of it, which that in and of itself is really fascinating and interesting, I think, to anyone who's a fan of Star Trek. But again, this is a role-playing game book. This is a source book, so it gives you detail about what it's like a day in the life of the officer, or just what generally life on the starship is like. It talks about creating daily schedules, talks about the technology on the starships. There's tons of random tables. I know a lot of role players like to have random tables, or as GMs like to have random tables to roll to make things happen, but random tables for things such as games that you could play on the starship, common games in the Star Trek universe, martial arts, holodeck stories. It goes on and on. In fact, throughout this whole book, in all the various sections, depending on what the section is, there are probably more random tables in this book than I recall being in previous books, other source books. So if you're a fan of random tables to help you generate stories or ideas, or just get an idea off the cuff, this book has a lot for, like, even casual things, like I said, like daily life on Starship. But it also has advice about working in the different departments. What do you do as a helmsman? What do you do as a science officer? What do you do in engineering? It gives you a lot of detail to really not just teach you what it's like if you're interested, but also inform your role playing, inform your image of your character. What would your character be doing in his downtime? What would your character be doing while on duty, but it's not a major plot moment that's on screen? So it helps you set up ideas for role-playing options as you play through your particular sessions or your episodes, whatever you're doing. It really is a fascinating, honest to God, it's a fascinating resource for role-playing any position on the starship as a Starfleet officer, of course. There is a lot of other additional information sprinkled in that, again, I think a lot of people, even if you're not interested in role-playing, it would apply to a lot of Trekkies, especially like hardcore Trekkies and nitpicking Trekkies. I know there's one section about map discrepancies, and if you've been a fan of Star Trek for a long time, and you're looking at maps and different things that have been published in books years ago and current maps, you'll notice they don't always line up. There's a lot of differences in the maps that you have. Like, the general idea, the general layout is pretty much the same, but you'll see things are not exactly the same. This gives you both an in-universe and an out-of-universe, a real-world explanation of why there are those differences. And like, little details like this are just fascinating. It gives you story hooks. It gives you, it talks about the resources, like pages. There's pages of resources like deuterium, dilithium, all those different kind of minerals and elements you hear on screen. This goes into so much detail explaining what that stuff is and again, it's full of ideas that you could incorporate into your games as both a player and the GM. Uh, the opening, which I thought, okay, I'm just going to blow through it because I want to get to Starships. Everyone wants the Starships. Who doesn't? But this was such a good read. I loved it. I took my time. I read every single entry. So good. What a great way to start off the source book. So the whole first part about Starfleet, life on Starship, it's spectacular. And again, even if you're not a fan of the game or you're not a player of the game, it's useful. It's useful, like where we're going to use it for. It's interesting information for Star Trek fans. So check it out for that. But it goes beyond that, and I'm getting to the not the good stuff, the better stuff. The next section is all about starship design, and this is kind of probably one of the key elements of the book, like one of the biggest hooks for selling it. I know what a lot of people, their attention really peaked when they heard about this. But this is about starship design. It talks about, first of all, how to build your own starship, how to create your own starships, how to design. I believe compared to the older releases, they are starting a new standard for, especially with the different eras of Starship, like starships in this era start with this many points in systems and then refits every 10 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever they would be, would add this many points into the systems, into the departments. So the older books, older resource books or source books, excuse me, maybe has a different style, but I think starting from this book, they're really standardizing it. So it becomes more uniform and makes more sense as you're looking at ships from different eras. But this section of the book also has some other, again, just useful support information. Like, what role does your starship play? What can you do to make your ship stand out and feel unique? And again, I believe there are random tables, that's where I'm looking for, to give you ideas, to give you suggestions of like little quirks that your ship can have, so it feels different from the other starships you're on, even the different ships in the same class. So little details like this, and telling you how to make your starship feel like its own character in the game, because as you know, when you watch series like Voyager, Discovery, Deep Space Nine, the station, the starship, they feel like they are one of the crew. They feel like they are their own character in the series. They have a personality. In Discovery's case, they literally do. So this gives you advice on how to make your players see the starship as one of them, as part of the team. So I thought that was great. Now, oh yeah. Before I get on to the next part, I'm about to jump ahead. This is creating starships plus creating shuttlecraft, small craft, and creating space stations. So you get 3 different things that you can build and design on your own in this source book. Of course, it's about starships, and there's a lot of starships in this book. I'm getting to that. I am coming to it. But there are, of course, going to be a lot of starships that are not there. Or maybe you design your own ship, your own unique, original design. This will tell you how you can make that into the game using these official rules. So it's great for that. No, I'm losing my train of thought here because I'm thinking about what I want to say next. So it's a great way to build your own unique facilities, ships, shuttles. This gives you the rules. It's awesome for that. Okay, jumping ahead. Here we go. Red alert. This is what I want to talk about. What everyone, I think, wants to talk about. What everyone wants to see when they get this. Red alert. The space frames. They have, in this book, 55 ships, 55 starships, large capital ships, like large space frame ships, stretching from the 22nd century all the way up to the 25th century that we see in Star Trek Picard. And 55, okay, breaking it down, plus there's even more small craft, shuttlecraft, and stations. I believe it goes up to like 70, around 75 total. But 55 starships. Now, here's why this is a red alert. If that didn't make sense already, here's why this is a red alert. This has images of every single one of those ships. Each ship, each of those 55 ships gets a 2-page spread about the starship. You have the stats, of course. Where are the base stats for that class? You have the history of the ship. You've got naming conventions to get an idea how to name it. You have also any notable or noticeable registry numbers. It follows this line as suggestions. Of course, you don't have to follow any of this for your game, but it gives you that information. Plus, it has a little section about a notable ship of that class. Like if you're talking about Constitution, of course, you're going to talk about the Enterprise as the notable ship, along with stats for that notable ship as well. But images on all that. Sometimes the old source books, sometimes the older books, and even other role-playing games too. A lot of times when they have starships, when they have equipment that there's no pictures of it, and you have to go look it up online and hope you could find something. This, thank goodness, they have images of all 55 of these space frames. Now, here we go. 22nd century, there are 8 different space frames. I'm not going to go through the names of all of them because I'm not going to bore you with me reading a name like Bueller. 8 space frames from 22nd century. You know, the whole United Earth, NX program, and beyond. That time as Starfleet was just being created. Then 23rd century, you have 18 space frames. This is the time that bridges between Enterprise, Strange New Worlds, Discovery, and the original series, as well as the original series movie era bleeding into the Lost era. So you'll have the staples such as Constitution, Crossfield, Walker, all those classes in there. 18 space frames there. 24th century, this is your next generation movie era, like the whole Voyager, Berman Trek era up until Enterprise. 27 space frames. 27 space frames. Now, not all of these are actually Berman era. Okay. And even though it's 24th century, like we're now in Lower Decks, Picard season 1. What else? I believe Prodigy also is at the tail end of the 24th century. But here's what's happening. I'm doing it. Black alert. You're getting starships from Star Trek Online. This is, I mean, you might know this by now, but this is really the first time we're bridging into another medium for the whole Star Trek franchise. You're getting starships from Star Trek Online. Some of them have appeared, of course, in Star Trek Picard Season 2. One of them is going to appear, at least one of them, is going to appear in Season 3 of Picard. The Odyssey class, Enterprise F. You have that in here. You have the Odyssey class. You have stats for the Enterprise F as the notable starship in this book. This is connecting. This book is like the doorway connecting so much of the Star Trek franchise. It takes this role-playing game, Star Trek Adventures, it connects it with, of course, the TV series, all of the series, connecting them all together in here. Well, maybe not all, not Prodigy, but even the game Star Trek Online. You have the Ross class, which started as, I believe, an idea from the Clear Skies people. They created this class from the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. It was put into Star Trek Online, and now it's available as an official ship in Star Trek Adventures, and I believe it also appeared briefly on screen in Picard. You are getting this circle of Star Trek, all of the franchise coming together, creating a complete picture. Everybody's working together, and that is amazing. You're even getting, I believe, the Pathfinder wasn't even in the TV show yet. I believe at least that one hasn't been in the TV show yet, but you're getting that stats in there in the 25th century. There's 2 starships from the 25th century now. You can get in this book. You can take your game now, your Star Trek Adventures game. I know every release slowly is moving the timeline up. We are now in the 25th century with this textbook. Oh, I'm a teacher. With this source book. That is amazing. Enterprise F. Oh my god, that's a red alert, that's a black alert, that's every alert. I punched my microphone, I'm so excited. I had to give it a black alert. This is the unifying element of the whole Star Trek franchise right here. It's astounding. Now, what else is astounding? And I'm going to give this a red alert too, because it deserves it. It deserves it. The visual design of this entire book. The visual design of this entire book is gorgeous. Like, if you can't tell from the images I'm putting up on the screen there, I'm assuming I'm putting them up there. If you can't tell right away by looking at it that it's beautiful, as you flip through it, the design, the graphic design on here, I believe the designer's name is Lee Woozy. There are interviews with him on Continuing Conversations podcast, and it's a YouTube video vlog. What do you call those things these days? I don't know. I might just dated myself. But he's an amazing designer. He's an amazing designer. I honestly should have probably looked it up. I don't know if he's done other Star Trek books like outside of Star Trek Adventures. But honestly, Paramount should get this man to work on the graphic designs of all their books for the layout. These books are just getting better and better, and Lee is a huge part of that. I don't know how many people are on his team or what else is involved here, but he is seriously knocking it out of the park with every single release. All of them, all of the people behind this are the writers, the creators, everyone at Modiphius. This is amazing, but the visual design, it needs special note. It's honestly a beautiful, beautiful book. All right, enough gushing. Okay, now the last 2 sections, I believe there's 2 more sections after there. I feel like I'm coming down off of a high here. I'm still feeling good, but wow, just all those starships. The last 2 sections, first there's optional rules, which I think is great, and I'm giving this a yellow alert. This is something for the GMs. It's a Game Master section. This is almost like an organic extension from the equally amazing Game Master's Guide. These are optional rules that you can add into your games. Of course, all of these surround starships. They're all about starship life or starship activities or starship events. Optional rules you could add into your game. So you'll have things like jury rigging, which is mentioned in the core rulebook, but this gives you very expanded options on how to do jury rigging. Building shuttles. Liz, if you're watching, building shuttles combined with the whole idea earlier on how to design your shuttles, but also in-game as a plot element, as a character's project, building shuttles. It gives you options how to do that. Maneuvering ships, the phenomenon that the ships are going to encounter. It really expands on so much that has been brought up before and is a natural part of Star Trek, but it just fleshes it out and gives you so much as a GM. It gives you so much to play with and sink your teeth into to make these different elements into a much more complete and I think enjoyable process for your players, and just an enjoyable element to add to your game. I see. I also wrote on here like diagnostics, maintenance, all that stuff, like Starship life, like it was back in the beginning of this book, where it talks about what it's like to work on a starship, live on a starship. Just simple things like doing daily maintenance, routine maintenance, a level 1 diagnostic compared to a level 5. There's a lot of detail here. It's not like micromanaging. It's not that kind of detail. This is still completely narrative game, but it gives you new ways to play with these concepts, and I think that's wonderful. On the last part, I can only speak about it briefly. Hey, you'll find out. Mission briefs. The reason why I can only speak briefly, here we go with our puns, is because, as I mentioned in previous reviews, I don't need a yellow alert on that. Turn that off. The reason why it's brief, I mentioned in previous reviews, I really don't read mission briefs. I don't really read the published adventures, the published scenarios. The reason being is I write my own stories. I write my own plots, my own episodes for the game. And I take inspiration from everything. Like this whole book, every page I'm reading is giving me ideas, and I'm getting thoughts for, I could do this in my game, or I could make a story out of this. The problem is, if I read the mission brief, I will get those same ideas, but those ideas will be the mission brief's ideas. So if I'm doing those ideas, I should just do the mission brief as it is, and my head is already full of more ideas than I can ever run the game for. So I skim them a little, and I just look like, that looks pretty good. That looks nice. But I don't read them a lot. I will say that I've heard other players say great things about the mission briefs. The ones, and GMs, I should say, who have been running the mission briefs, they speak highly of them. I haven't heard really any negativity. I was going to say negative, and negativity came up, so that probably was pronounced horribly. But I haven't really heard anything negative about any of the mission briefs put out by Modiphius and all the writers so far. So I'm sure if you like mission briefs, if that's your thing, I think you will get all the joy out of these that you get from every other mission brief that can be found in this whole entire system. So I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed the fact I dressed up for the 25th century here, just to commemorate the fact that we are moving into the 25th century in Star Trek Adventures. Very exciting times, my friends. This is great, and the fact that it's connecting to everything, it makes me excited for Star Trek Picard Season 3. I shouldn't be, but it makes me excited for it because I want to see what more we get from the 25th century, and I want to see what eventually might be coming to Star Trek Adventures. I believe they're waiting for the whole Picard 3 seasons to finish so that they could do something with it that won't become instantly outdated when the new season shows up. So that's it. That's my review. Oh my god, I did it in less than 30 minutes. If I shut up, I might be able to finish in under 30 minutes. But that is my review. Buy this. If you are a fan of Star Trek, if you are a player of STA, if you're a game master of STA, definitely if you're a game master, my god. But if you just like Star Trek, if you like the starships, if you're a Trekkie, this should be on your shelf. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Black alert again. I'm throwing it up there again. This should be on your shelf. This is the unifying element. This is the Unimatrix 1. This is where everything comes together and is collected and just links the entire Star Trek universe together. It's a beautiful book. It's a wonderful addition to Star Trek Adventures, and it is just a great source of information for all Star Trek fans. Take a look at it. Put it on your shelf. Get a copy. You owe it to yourself. It is so good. It definitely earns the hype that it has received. All right. That's it. I guess I could jump back to hey, I'm back. Could jump back to the large video before that rant. But that's it. That is my review. I'm probably over 30 minutes by now, but that's okay. It was worth it. It was worth it for this book. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, Jeremy. If you have any questions or comments, please post it here or find me on Twitter or Instagram at The Final FM, mostly Twitter, occasionally Instagram, but I'm always chatting on Twitter. Please, we want to talk about Star Trek. We want to talk about Star Trek Adventures. Anything you want, please get us there. Also, we might have something special coming up soon. So if you're watching this 5 years from now, meaningless comment. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for watching. I hope I helped. That's it. I'll see you in the next video, which is not true. I won't see any of you. But thank you for watching. Live long and prosper, and peace and long life.